In the news tonight, His Majesty the King meets tribal elders in the Central Badia and assures that the country is capable to counter various challenges. About 10 people are injured after being stabbed by a Palestinian at a Tel Aviv commuter bus. And the United States says Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi remains the legitimate leader of Yemen after Houthi rebels seized his residence. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. His Majesty the King met tribal elders and local dignitaries during a tour at the Central Badia region. King Abdullah joined members of the Bani Sakhr tribe as part of his visit to various areas across the country to learn firsthand about their needs and demands of services. He said Jordan, through the resolve and unity of its people, is strong and capable of fending off challenges, adding that the economy is the biggest challenge. He said improving the living standards and alleviating poverty are his top priority. The king also told the elders that authorities were engaged in intensive efforts to win the freedom of Mu'adh Qassasbeh, the Jordanian Air Force pilot whose jet came down over Syria, but he asked for patience and that endeavor. His Majesty hailed the armed forces and security agencies in protecting the country's borders and citizens, noting that the situation on the border is reassuring. The king gave his directive to the royal court to launch priority projects for the local community in the health, education and vocational and technical training field, as well as job-creating enterprises. The tribal leaders pledged to continue the process of building the country to turn it into a model under its Hashemite leadership, which advocates modernization and the defense of pan-Arab issues at international forums. Petra Engineering Industry Companies in Muaggar is one of the leading Jordanian companies specialized in manufacturing heating, ventilating and air conditioning systems that have reached global markets. His Majesty the King visited the company, which was founded with a broad vision to produce a wide variety of ventilating and air conditioning equipment that met a diversity of application requirements and to export to major markets worldwide. King Abdullah checked on modern technology used by the company, deemed a model for national investments, as it provided 2,000 job opportunities for Jordanians in the engineering, administrative and technical fields. The Petra Engineering Industry Company's export to the world stood at $110 million last year. His Majesty also watched a photo exhibition on the history of the company, its establishment and its products. He was briefed on the company's future plans related to expanding its investments in new areas. King Abdullah also toured a number of production facilities affiliated to the company. His Majesty the King discussed with German Chancellor Angela Merkel over the phone ways to cement German-Jordanian cooperation in various fields and the latest developments in the region. During the telephone conversation, the King and the German Chancellor tackled a number of international issues of common interest. The King Abdullah also welcomed Japanese State Minister for Foreign Affairs Yasuhide Nakayama to discuss Jordanian-Japanese ties. The meeting focused on the outcome of a recent visit of Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to Jordan, as well as the need to follow up on his talks in Amman to boost cooperation between the two countries in various fields. The lower house agreed with the government to raise electricity tariffs by 7.5%, not 15% that was approved earlier by the government. Head of the House of Finance and Energy Committee, MP Youssef Al-Qurna, said the agreement will be passed to the House for debate next week. Commenting on the compromise deal, lawmakers said the government was forthcoming about the House's demand to cut by half the tariff hike, which went into force this month. The MPs had demanded that the power price hike be frozen due to falling oil prices. The cabinet meanwhile stressed it respects the House's recommendations as it considers the legislature a partner in the decision-making process. The government reiterated its commitment to consult with the House on various domestic issues and remain fully open to the MPs. At least 10 people on a commuter bus in central Tel Aviv were stabbed by a Palestinian before he was shot in the leg by a prison security officer. Israeli police said the assailant was a West Bank resident who stabbed the driver and then attacked passengers shortly after boarding the bus. The Israeli government blamed the attack on Hamas group, although no one claimed responsibility. Here's more.
Tel Aviv this morning. A knife-wielding Palestinian attacked commuters in a bus. A scene so rare in the city in recent months. 10 people were stabbed, 4 of them seriously, during the morning rush hour attack. The man was shot in the leg by a security officer as he fled. Israeli police identified the attacker as a 23-year-old Palestinian from the occupied West Bank city of Tulkarem. Passengers on the bus en route to Tel Aviv University said the assailant stabbed the driver and then others at the Ma'arif Junction, one of the coastal city's busiest. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, but the Israeli government was quick to point a finger at the Palestinian Hamas group and also criticized the Palestinian president.
Now, President Abbas, the leader of the Palestinians, cannot have it both ways. He can't link arms with world leaders in Paris to condemn terrorism when he links arms with Hamas back at home.
A Hamas spokesman called it a natural reaction to Israeli terrorism against the Palestinian people and holy places.
There are continuous and various Israeli crimes against our people everywhere. Therefore, we emphasize that our Palestinian people will continue their resistance and protection on their rights against this ongoing terrorism.
The stabbing was the latest in a string of incidents in the past few months at a time of heightened tension between Palestinians and Israelis, particularly in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. Radl for the news at 10.
Yemen's President Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi was widely expected to yield to demands for constitutional change and power sharing with Houthi rebels. The Houthi took up positions outside Hadi's home after defeating his guards in 2 days of battle. A source close to the president said Hadi had met an official of the rebel group and would soon issue decrees resolving all differences. The sources denied Hadi was under house arrest inside his residence, surrounded since early morning by Houthi fighters. The Houthis swept into the capital 4 months ago and have emerged as a dominant force in the country. For now, at least, they appear to have decided to stop short of overthrowing Hadi. Gulf Arab foreign ministers condemned the Houthi government, calling the takeover a coup d'etat. The 6 Gulf Arab ministers who met at Riyadh Air Base also described the Houthi action as terrorism. They demanded state bodies to return to government control and had his chief of staff detained by the Houthi last week be released. The U.S. State Department said Hadi remains the legitimate leader of Yemen and the United States is in contact with him. Jordan strongly condemned the chaos in Yemen and those responsible for the violence and their backers. State Minister for Media Affairs and Communications, Mohammed al-Momani, reiterated Jordan's support the legitimate government and the political process in Yemen. He expressed hope that all parties to the conflict could heed reason and resort to dialogue, and warned that violence and anarchy would take Yemen to the unknown. Over to Syria, violence continued to escalate in the country as the government launched aerial bombings in Al-Hula near the city of Homs. At least 10 people are said to have been killed during the raid. Explosions followed after government helicopters dropped barrel bombs on the town. A car bomb also struck the Ikrima area of Homs. In the town of Kobani near the Turkish border, Kurdish fighters continued to fight IS militants. Japan vowed it will do its utmost to free 2 Japanese believed to be held captive by the IS militant group. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe told reporters that Tokyo would never give in to terrorism. The militant IS group released an online video allegedly showing 2 Japanese captives and threatening to kill them unless it received $200 million in ransom. British Foreign Secretary Philippe Hammond expressed his solidarity with Japan over the hostage-taking as he met with Japan's Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida in London.
A large number of bilateral issues that we need to discuss. We will, of course, be talking about the challenge of dealing with ISIL, and we will want to discuss in detail the hostage crisis, and allow me to express our solidarity with the Japanese people as they face this appalling threat from ISIL. But we will also want to discuss how we can work together in responding to international challenges, as well as building on our already very strong bilateral relations.
U.S. President Barack Obama met a lot of criticism on his policy towards Iran after his annual State of the Union address. Several U.S. senators have been pushing to pass new sanctions on Iran as talks between Tehran and 6 world powers over its nuclear program drag on. In response, Obama urged Congress not to rush into any new sanctions on Iran before the talks are completed, since it will but guarantee that diplomacy falls.
Chance to negotiate a comprehensive agreement that prevents a nuclear-armed Iran, secures America and our allies, including Israel, while avoiding yet another Middle East conflict. There are no guarantees that negotiations will succeed, and I keep all options on the table to prevent a nuclear Iran. But new sanctions passed by this Congress at this moment in time will all but guarantee that diplomacy fails, alienating America from its allies, making it harder to maintain sanctions, and ensuring that Iran starts up its nuclear program again. It doesn't make sense. And that's why I will veto any new sanctions bill that threatens to undo this progress.
The U.S. president also tackled a wide range of issues, namely the economy, which he said was growing, and the unemployment rate, which is lower than it was before the financial crisis. On terrorism, Obama called on Congress to pass a new authorization of forces against IS militants, saying that a U.S.-led coalition of countries is stopping the advance of the group in Iraq and Syria.
Iraq and Syria, American leadership, including our military power, is stopping ISIL's advance. Instead of getting dragged into another ground war in the Middle East, we are leading a broad coalition, including Arab nations, to degrade and ultimately destroy this terrorist group. We're also supporting a moderate opposition in Syria that can help us in this effort, and assisting people everywhere who stand up to the bankrupt ideology of violent extremism. Now, this effort will take time. It will require focus. But we will succeed. And tonight I call on this Congress to show the world that we are united in this mission by passing a resolution to authorize the use of force against ISIL.
Russia dismissed fresh accusations from Kiev that Moscow is sending soldiers and weapons to Ukraine. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said he hoped for progress at talks in Berlin on the conflict despite renewed fighting. However, Lavrov acknowledged that the pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine were holding more territory than assigned to them under a ceasefire agreement reached last September. Fighting in eastern Ukraine increased sharply this month, leaving the ceasefire in tatters. The Ukrainian accusation was one of its boldest assertions yet that Russia's military is directly involved in the conflict. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko told the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, that Russia had 9,000 troops in Ukraine and demanded their withdrawal. Poroshenko was cutting short his visit and returning home due to the escalating crisis. Back here at home, unemployment in Jordan stood at 12.3% for the fourth quarter of 2014. The Department of Statistics said in its quarter report about unemployment that it soared by 0.9% compared to the third quarter of the same year, when it had increased among men by 1.7%, while decreasing by 2.9% among women. The figures showed that joblessness was especially high among bachelor degree holders, standing at 16.8% compared with holders of other educational qualification. The data also showed that the southern governorate of Amman had the highest unemployment rate at 21.2%, while the lowest was in Madaba, standing at 9.1%. His company may not rival Google or German software maker SAP yet, but Gaza-based IT entrepreneur Saadi Lozon has plans to change that. In 9 years, Lozon and his partner Ahmed Abu Sha'ban have transformed their firm's Unit 1 from a tiny outfit in a single room in the blockaded Gaza Strip into a successful business with clients in Europe, the United States, and the Arab world. They can't leave Gaza easily, but they can develop applications from web and mobile devices online and provide international clients with data management services. Lozon and Abu Sha'ban came up with the idea after graduating with a degree in computer science. Lozon said the Gaza war had been particularly problematic in an industry where success depends on quick delivery.
Our servers do not need crossings or terminals in order to export our products. Though there is blockade, but IT sector could break the siege and help people to work and also export our services. But we could not get our equipment, computers and networks due to the regulations and restrictions that Israeli crossings have.
Visitors to Berlin Fashion Week could be forgiven for thinking they had slept back in time as Austrian designer Lena Hoschek presented her Spring-Summer 2015 collection. Nipped in waist and full skirts recreated a 1950s hourglass silhouette, the feminine style Hoschek has become known for since she set up her label in 2005. In the Fashion Week venue behind Berlin Brandenburg Gate, models walked down the catwalk to an appropriately retro soundtrack with smoky eyes and beehives completing the look. The clothes on show ranged from patterned dresses suitable for day wear to a full-length evening gown in sparkling gold. Third seed Rafael Nadal battled through illness and poor timing on his ground strokes to lurch into the third round of the Australian Open with a 6-2, 3-6, 6-7, 6-3, 7-5 victory over American qualifier Tim Smisek. Nadal appeared to be affected by something in the second set as he sweated heavily and took his time between changeovers before calling for the doctor early in the third set. Meanwhile, Roger Federer survived a first-set scare before he ramped up his performance and advanced safely to the third round with a 3-6, 6-3, 6-2, 6-2 victory over Italian Simone Bolelli. Federer initially looked out to sort against the Italian, but the Swiss managed to turn the momentum of the match in the 8th game of the second set, which ultimately led him to victory. And finally, cold weather tonight across the kingdom with southwesterly light winds. Tomorrow, fair condition will prevail in most regions, and the Jordan Valley can expect some much anticipated warm weather. Wind will be southeasterly moderate to brisk. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a relatively cool night and warm day tomorrow with northerly winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. His Majesty the King meets tribal elders in the central Badia and assures that the country is capable to counter various challenges. About 10 people are injured after being stabbed by a Palestinian at a Tel Aviv commuter bus. And the United States says Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi remains the legitimate leader of Yemen after Houthi rebels seized his residence. And with this we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.